today is supposed to be a supply teaching day, but unfortunately I'm not supply teaching, as you can see. So I thought I'd make a first impressions video of what it's like to be a supply teacher based on my initial experiences, some of the reasons why I'm not supply teaching today, and then delve into what you need to know about supply teaching if it's something that you're considering. So to start off with, whenever I've explained to people that I've come back from the UAE to the UK and I'm supply teaching, they're like, what is supply teaching? And basically what happens is they phone up an agency, a school does, and they ask for the very best teacher that they have available. And obviously that's not me, and that's not what supply teaching is. So supply teaching basically is where, let's say they've got staff off sick, sometimes it's not sick, they might have staff who need just additional time to do admin tasks, and they'll phone up an agency and they'll say, you know, we need a teacher, it might just be for the afternoon, the whole day, to come in and provide supply and fill in the gaps, essentially fill in the supply that they don't have. So then they'd phone up someone like me, the agency, and they'd say, look, we've got some work on. Do you want to go to XYZ school? You're going to be in year so-and-so doing this. I would then turn around and say, perfect. So for me, supply teaching is great because, as some of you might know already, I've left the UAE, and the reason why I've left the UAE to come back to the UK is in search of flexibility. And so far I've been able to do that. I've set up a bit of a brilliant life at the moment, and I'm almost living the dream in a really weird way. Today's a really sunny day, and having some flexibility, although I'm not supply teaching, means that I can go on walks and things like that. And that is kind of outside of what this video is. Supply teaching for teachers who perhaps have left the classroom full time is perfect for that reason of flexibility. You can choose which schools you go to. You know, if they could turn up and they phone you and they say, we want you to go to so-and-so, and you don't want to go to that school, that's great. However, as we'll get into a bit later on, it might be a bit more of a challenge if supply teaching is your only source of income. So supply teaching for me is brilliant because I can get to go to different schools and explore different schools, see which schools have a nice feeling to them, and which schools I perhaps don't want to teach at in the future. And it gives me that real sense of flexibility. I've only done a few days of supply teaching so far, so it's not fair on me to give a full review of what it's like to be a supply teacher. Perhaps in a year's time, I'll be able to give a much more comprehensive overview of what that's like. But for now, I want to give a kind of first impressions of how I found it to be so far and what you need to know so that if you're considering doing it in the future, then you have that better understanding. First things first. If you're considering being a supply teacher, it's really important that you understand the different types of agencies that are around. I've been blessed to work with a brilliant company. I think it's called ABC Teachers or something along those lines. I'll put a link in the bottom because I think I get a kickback if you end up with them. We'll put it in there. Regardless, they've been really supportive, and I definitely recommend them. Really friendly people, and they have a proper PAYE system in place. And the reason why that's key is because when we were looking, my wife and I, at supply teaching, one of the systems that comes up is an umbrella company. And I know it's quite commonplace for some teachers from overseas to set up an umbrella company and things like that for their supply teaching, but it comes with all sorts of additional tax implications, such as paying both employee national insurance like you'd normally do and employers national insurance. So you end up paying quite a lot out of your own pocket to become a supply teacher through that umbrella company. It's not something I have full understanding of, but I've always been advised if you go through supply teaching to try and set up your PAYE system because it's a lot more comprehensive and easier to go through. I then had to go through a couple of different trainings. One training was a behaviour management training, going through a few different things. Another training was safeguarding, obviously crucial. And another training was using the internet safely. Obviously I have this YouTube channel, and that's they know about it. That's great because I'm able to train up teachers. It's all relevant, but just to make sure that schools have an individual who understand those things, it was crucial for me to do that too. So those are all the initial setups, and I think it probably took me about 2-3 weeks. I was a lot faster than my partner, and the reason for that is my enhanced DBS that I paid for, not the company, was a lot quicker than my partner's. Now, once set up, I have the ability to use the app and the app is great for setting my availability. So at the moment, like I said, I'm running flexibly working, and I go through a system of 2-1-2. So it's 2 days of supply that I'm available for. I've not actually worked 2 days of supply yet. 1 day for me with my business, my YouTube, everything that I've got going on, and then 2 days where I consult with other edtech companies. In the future, that might change, but what's nice about supply teaching is that I can change my system on the app, and I'm able to say, look, I'm available this day, that day, and I'm able to reject work on the day if needs be. But at the same time, one of the things that can be challenges is when you set yourself as available and you don't get a phone call. That can be a challenge because you almost anticipate that your day is going to be X and then it ends up being something different. So today I'm meant to be supply teaching, and here I am filming a YouTube video instead. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing so far, is that anticipation, that not knowing. In the future, perhaps more systems will come into place and I will know in the future what I'm going to be teaching. I think as I build a relationship with the supply agency, they'll know that that's my best way of working. And I think it's just a matter of time. Hence why this is my first impressions video and not a full review. My first day of supply teaching, I actually went back to my old school in the UK, which was amazing. So that was really, really strange but amazing at the same time. I was able to see stuff that I previously worked with, and it was really nice. And what's been great so far for me is that, you know, you hear horror stories of supply teaching, and you hear horror stories of like, you know, things weren't set up, this, that, and the other. The supply schools that I've been to so far have been really good, whether it's the teaching assistant or a support member of staff or a head teacher. They've always made sure that I have everything available to start the day. I'm sure in the future that might not happen, and I found that actually having some of my own tools to lean back on has been really useful too. But for the most part, I've been in the mornings. Some schools I've turned up at a little bit earlier than the time I'm meant to start, and there's no one on reception, so I'm just kind of waiting around. Other schools I've turned up on time, and I would have liked to have been there a little bit earlier. I've found that so far my time is set from like 8:30 to 3:30, and me being me, I want to be there a little bit earlier. I can do that in some schools, in other schools that's not possible. So when I turn up to these schools, they've been really good so far at making sure that I have things that I need. One thing that can be a challenge is the technological side of things. And I find that there's a few different things that you need to try and get set up straight away. So I'm almost in my head now as the first impressions, knowing that I want to go in and I want to set up a few different things. So I need to know what the tech login is so that I can run the register straight away. School dinners and sandwiches, that's a big thing in the UK that just kind of isn't in the UAE. It's really funny. Number 3, obviously writing the date on the board, and alongside the date, writing who I am, especially when I'm teaching the younger children so that they know who I am as a person. And then number 4, making sure that there's like morning work on. Number 5 is then making sure that I know the incoming and outgoing plans for the day. So how the children come in and how the children go home. And usually the children are pretty good at knowing that, and having an adult around there can be really, really supportive. But those are almost the crucial parts there. That coming in and coming out is something that I stress about quite a lot, because you don't know those different routines. One school, I had somebody who was like a member of staff, TA. In fact, a couple of schools, it was teaching assistants who supported with that. There was another school where it was just like, it's just that routine, and it's obviously so crucial for safeguarding to make sure that those habits are in place. That's one that does stress me out, is because as a full-time primary school teacher, you know, have that relationship with parents, and you know how children go home. You know, right, yeah, you're walking home, off you go, boom, 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 boom. You don't know that coming in. That can be a stress. So during the lunchtime, I'll sometimes find staff and be like, can you just help me out with the end of home routines? It might be a teaching assistant who comes up like, yeah, they know that can be a challenge. Otherwise, lesson-wise, has been pretty good. The biggest challenge I think I've faced so far is that technological side. Usually the resources are done. That's what my experience have been so far, or it could be vice versa. The lessons are on the slides and the resources aren't done, or the resources are done and I need to find the lessons. So after that kind of period, I'm pretty good. There's just usually just that initial like, right, get things sorted that way. Other than that though, the teaching side of things has been pretty good, but a little bit of a challenge. Now, I understand why. You know as well as I do, when you have a supply teacher, you don't have that relationship. And knowing from me when I was at school, you can be a little bit different because they don't know who you are as a person. But being the supply teacher now, it's really interesting. I have a conversation with the children about trust and respect. It's that I'm respecting you to be the person that you usually are. I'm trusting you to be the same way that you are. When you break that trust is broken, and I need to be a little bit stricter or a little bit of this. I know that the children will have their own routines when it comes to behaviour management. Coming in, it can be a little bit more of a challenge. For example, unless I have their login for it, some schools that use things like Class Dojo and things like that, I don't have that. So that can be really hard. And what I'd end up doing is doing like a table system. I'll do like table points, a bit similar to what I would have done in the UAE. And then at the end of the day, whichever table's won, if you like, gets a sticker. I'm going to change that. I'm not too keen on that system at the moment of behaviour management. But at the moment, it's just a small way to recognise it's good behaviour rather than like, you're not listening. It's just kind of helping bring that team cohesion together as a class. But I do think behaviour management is something that I'm going to try and just really tailor and tweak as I'm doing supply teaching. Lesson-wise though, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I get to still have a foot in the door of teaching, and I still get to do that, you know, fun, silly, exciting Mr. Blakemore. And it's been really lovely to step back in the classroom. What's really nice is because I've been able to set up a bit more of a flexible lifestyle for myself, I get to do this and I don't have to do this. It turns it from an obligation to a choice. I get to go in the mornings and kind of go like, right, just have fun. The lessons are going to be there, they might not be there. We're going to have fun, we're going to try and get through as much work as we can, and at the end of the day, as long as all the kids are safe, they have a good day and they've learnt something, then I've done my job as a supply teacher. So that's my first impressions of being a supply teacher so far. There are some challenges that have cropped up in regards to my behaviour management, making sure that that's fine. Sometimes things are a little bit challenging initially in the first parts of the day, but I think that's just to be expected. But for the most part, the agency that I've been with have been absolutely incredible. Has it been a little bit more challenging not having work on when you think you're going to be teaching? Absolutely. But hopefully as and when I start to do more and more supply teaching, the work will continue to pick up. So we'll see how things go. But like I said, this is just the first impressions of supply teaching. Let me know any comments that you've got about supply teaching in the UK. I can't answer all of them because this is not a comprehensive review. I don't know everything about it, but hopefully I can answer some of your questions. Again, if you're interested in knowing more about some of the different tools that I've used, edtech tools, bits and pieces like that, just make sure you sign up to my mailing list. I've started to share all sorts of useful tools and bits and pieces that I'm using in the classroom to help me, especially when I'm on supply. Having those tools to lean on has been really useful. And if you've not yet subscribed to follow the journey of what life is like now I'm a bit more of a flexible teacher, feel free to do that. I'll leave a video up in the corner that YouTube has decided to recommend to you because it thinks it's tailored specifically to you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Until then, I'm out.